Hello and welcome. Here we normally talk about movies, but today we're discussing the new television series Fallout. Mostly because I'm an adult child and I love the games in their wacky dystopian world. Fallout currently consists of 8 one-hour-long episodes that fall into the action-adventure category with bits of horror and humor along the way. Geneva Robertson Dworet and Graham Wagner created the show, which is based on the video game universe by Bethesda. The show takes place in an alternate reality that is similar to our own but diverges somewhere after World War II. In the world of Fallout, nuclear power became the primary source of energy, and the United States ended up in an arms race not only with Russia, but China as well. The arms race led the world down the path of destruction, and in 2077 nukes were dropped across the planet, leading to a veritable apocalypse. 200 years later, in the wastelands of America, a scientist escapes from the Enclave with an extremely important piece of technology. The story follows Lucy, Maximus, and Cooper as they chase down the scientist and his dog. It stars Ella Purnell as Lucy the Vault Dweller, Aaron Moten as Maximus the Brotherhood of Steel Squire, and Walton Goggins as Cooper Howard the Ghoul Bounty Hunter. As usual, we'll start with the good, move on to the bad, and finish with a few personal thoughts and a rating. Okay, the story really embraces the Fallout universe, and they tried to fit as many aspects of the game into it as they could. We get to see and learn about a few of the mutated species like ghouls and ferals, the super mutants, radroaches, and gulpers. They also spent a bit of time exploring most of the main factions, such as the NCR, the Brotherhood of Steel, and they went heavily into the backstory of Vault-Tec. All of it is amazing to see on the big screen for fans of the series, and newcomers will be impressed by the vast, fantastical world being built. The characters they centered the story on are interesting people going through a lot of complex emotions and dealing with a crazy world. They have a ton of great character building moments throughout the series and managed to give each of them a satisfying journey to go on. The journey is full of excitement too. Each episode, they explore a new location in the Fallout universe and get into a ton of fights. There's a lot of brutal kills, great horror moments, and even a few funny visual gags. They even got the VAT system in and made the kills incredibly gory. The cast did a fantastic job as a whole creating this dystopian world and all of the different factions in it. The Vault Dwellers are all naive, simple cult-like people. The people of the Wastelands are violent and a little bit crazy, and the Brotherhood is made up of religious fanatics. There's also the robots who are all uselessly hilarious. They're highly polite, but say the damnedest things. For standouts, you have each of the main 3 actors and a few honorable mentions from the supporting cast. For me personally, Walton Goggins was the most standout, creating a character that is both vicious and sympathetic at the same time. His character gets 2 different stories in the first season, and he plays both emotional journeys with an incredible finesse. In the past storyline, he plays a normal, honest guy realizing that his wife isn't who he thought and that the world is in a bad place. In the present storyline, he plays a hardened ghoul bounty hunter who is cruel on the surface but has a heart of gold at the core. He's quick to harm others who threaten him and does it with a style that can't be matched, but also lets his heart show whenever O4 the dog is around. Goggins nails every part of the performance and manages to be the most charismatic by a mile. Aaron Moten plays Maximus, a Brotherhood of Steel Squire sent on his first mission. He's a bit of a coward by nature but tries his best to step up and be brave. Moten is asked to play a lot of big emotions related to coming to terms with reality, and he does a fantastic job of it. His character is funny, a bit naive, but he plays it with a lot of charm. Ella Purnell plays Lucy, the naive Vault Dweller who learns to forge her own path. Her character starts off a little bit insufferable, but grows on you quickly and easily becomes the heart of the show by the end. Purnell puts out a warm and fuzzy persona that is easy to like, but also manages to nail that annoying naivety. Purnell gets to do a lot of humor, some big emotional moments as she comes to terms with the world outside of the vault, and a few monologues where she espouses her ideals. She does a great job with the emotional journey and nails the different aspects of her character. For honorable mentions, you had Johnny Pemberton as Thaddeus the Squire, Kyle MacLachlan as Hank McLean, and Sarita Chowdhury as Lee Moldaver. The visual journey is fairly clean with a lot of great set work, some amazing costumes, and a lot of fantastic action. It takes place in a dystopian world, and they did a fantastic job of making the world look torn apart and dangerous. There's irradiated animals, water, and spaces everywhere, and the world itself looks sick. The action is also exceptionally well done most of the time. There were a few hiccups early on with slow-mo, but otherwise the action is brutal, gory, and filled with creative ways to kill people. One of my favorites was the junk jet shooting the plastic baby arm into the guy's chest. There were also a ton of scary moments that felt really great. The world around them is terrifying enough as it is, but they were good at doing jump scares, creating tense moments, and playing off of the psychological horror moments that popped up. They also included music from the original games in creative and clever ways that worked great as references for longtime fans and were just plain funny for newcomers. One of my favorites was the coffee song playing during the first sex scene. Alright, now that we've been through the good, we should address the few little problems this show has just to be consistent. The story is kind of holy and has troubles explaining itself sometimes. It's based on a fantastical universe, so you have to give them some leeway, but they aren't even consistent with their own writing a lot of the time. The holes usually aren't big enough to hamper your experience, but they do pile up by the end of the first season, and most of them could have been fixed with a quick edit. It just seems a little sloppy. They also struggled to start the story well. Lucy and Maximus's storylines are a little slow in the beginning, and I found myself kind of tuning them out until the third episode when both of them start to get a lot better as characters. They also had a few problems with the visuals now and again. The slow-mo being overused in the first 2 episodes was a real problem and was completely immersion breaking, but there's also a couple of instances of bad CGI throughout the season. They're usually not on screen long and are only used once or twice, but it can still be a bit annoying. Finally, the soundtrack is filled with instrumentals that aren't that strong or memorable. They add a bit of tension and scraps of emotion here and there, but mostly just back up the emotional journey in a muted way. When you hear the original songs from the games pop up, it makes the instrumentals feel like a cheap replacement. One of the things I loved about the game was how creepy the music was when you were exploring those buildings. It made them feel like haunted houses stuck in time, and the show doesn't really seem to get that. They use most of those songs to sit over montages and transitions, and it would have been nice to see them incorporate more of them in more meaningful ways. Personally, I really enjoyed the first season of Fallout and think they did an excellent job. They included a lot of references to the games and recreated the world in a fantastic manner, and told stories that were quite meaningful and filled with great character moments. The action was fun, brutal, and gory, and I can't wait to see what they do with super mutants when they eventually show up. If you like the Fallout games, you'll probably like this. If you like fantasy stories with great characters and awesome actions, you'll probably have a good time too. As for a rating, I'd give this show a 7 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts on the show. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye!